Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. We are also joined today by Simon Leyland, CEO and co-founder of CloudInteract. Find out more about CloudInteract by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. It's time for another ACP, and Alex and I are on our best behaviour today because the boss is in the house. Simon Leyland, the CEO and co-founder of CloudInteract, is with us. Hey, Simon.
Welcome,
Hey,
Simon.
Tom. Hey, Alex. It's an absolute honour to be here. I'm now, hopefully I'll now be famous with my own daughter because we listen to this in the car. So, although I'll probably on mute or something because you can't really listen to yourself, can you? But no, thanks for inviting me. It's a great thing that you've started up. And as I say, I'm a keen listener. I enjoy, and I enjoy all the guests you guys have. So yeah,
Cool.
Really good stuff.
I'm very pleased to see you. And hello, Simon's daughter. Ask your dad for a mug, a CloudInteract mug for the podcast. But we want to talk to you because, well, we're going to get there in a minute because you've just put out this blog post and I want to talk to you all about it. And Alex, I've got lots of thoughts about it, but it'd be really good, I think, for everyone to start really kind of at the beginning with an intro to you, because we have talked to you briefly before, I think on a previous episode at the Amazon Connect Independent User Group, which was cool. But we didn't really have the time to dig into you a little bit and the kind of career history and everything that led you up until the kind of point of starting CloudInteract. So over to you. What's your life story?
Yeah, well, I was well suited for the IT industry. My degree was in politics and international relations. So,
the relationships, I guess,
yeah,
maybe that.
Exactly. So Machiavelli in the 15th century is a pretty blueprint for some of those things. But yeah, I've always been in the IT industry straight from university, always been in the sort of telecommunications network side of things. But I would say always graduated towards the end user. So I was with AT&T and then some large American telcos. I went into consulting with Accenture for a couple of years. So I had an interesting time with the Accenture guys. I was doing some government contract benchmarking, which was always fun. And then went out on my own. So the UK has so many really good companies, large multinationals that have got really good IT shops. And I was always lucky enough to go and work in those areas. So pharmaceutical with AstraZeneca, manufacturing with Jaguar Land Rover, I guess luxury manufacturing with Jaguar Land Rover, and then Burberry, which was a whole different experience for myself as a sort of company culture, and then several others as well. So really enjoyed my time in that. And I was always around the sort of digital workplace, changing the way that companies operate. So with Sony Pictures one time, I would put the first network in, and this was nearly 15 years ago now, I guess, where what they used to do in the industry is they used to do the daily shoot, and then they used to get it on a motorcycle. And so this was, I think, the Da Vinci Code at the time. That's how far back it was. So they would get the shoot from Paris, I think it was, onto a motorcycle, over to Eurostar, over to London, and then they would fly back to Los Angeles and they would do like the translations and things like that almost straight away. And for the first time, we actually digitized that. So they didn't have to do that process. So maybe it took a couple of days before that process, whereas then it kind of went. So that was kind of fun. James Bond, he went across that thing as well. So I think that was being shot in Austria. So, and at the time I was actually looking after the Foreign and Commonwealth Office as well. Cause I would say I worked for some government. So I had the fictional James Bond and also the reality of James Bond as well. Because again, that Foreign and Commonwealth network, that has to be obviously secure. Didn't actually realize this is how my politics degree didn't really help me. Didn't actually realize that, what the Foreign and Commonwealth Office did. So there you go. I mean, I knew they did foreign affairs, but I didn't actually know they did the James Bond stuff as well. But there you go.
Yeah.
So always transformed. And then telephony side, in the offices, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we'd go and see vendors and they'd be still selling large scale telephony platforms. into a large enterprise. And it seemed to make absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. This was just at the time where I guess Skype was coming around
Mhm.
and those types of capabilities. And it just made no sense, these telephony, but they were, enterprise was spending millions and millions of dollars and pounds on these platforms. And then the vendors were still saying, oh, it'll still be relevant and still be relevant. And it's just not relevant. It just didn't feel right to me. And obviously over the last sort of 10, 15 years, with the help of, obviously COVID was an accelerant to transformation. I think if you walk into most offices now, you don't see a single telephone
Mm.
anywhere other than obviously a mobile phone
Mm.
and then someone on a headset. So
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that
that's
kind
my
of a bright
background.
point at one point, wasn't there? Because I started out my career looking at Cisco and did loads of putting IP phones on desks and deploying 20,000 phones to an organization. And suddenly it just kind of, like you say, Skype for Business. Was it Link came
Link?
along?
Mm.
Yeah.
And then into Teams just transformed and then sort of dropped off a cliff, the uptake of actual phones.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you think that very specific history you had of almost being in different verticals and different environments and seeing that digitization happen or that modernization happen, did that give you, if you like, a sense when you arrived in an industry that was maybe a few years behind that? Because if you think about, maybe, and we don't often think of government as being the cutting edge, but certainly the film industry, that's true, and technologically, and actually probably, I would imagine, the FCO get lots of money to keep abreast of certain things. So yeah, that as well. So did that give you almost like you could see it happening over there, and then you came in here and were like, oh, comms needs to go the same way?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the one thing that people in the technology industry probably don't appreciate that is that these companies, what I was so fortunate to have is experience of these different cultures. So,
Mm.
and I can kind of articulate that really quickly, really sort of quickly, in the sense of, Alex mentions the call manager. So we went into Sony Pictures and we said, oh, you're going to, there's a project ongoing that actually was, I mean, this was nearly 20 years ago. So it was one of the first potentially Cisco call managers. And we said, oh, it'll probably take about a year to do. And they were horrified. It's like, a year? We can make, 12 movies. I think they were I think Gladiator and Spider-Man were kind of around at that time. And so they're like, we can make blockbuster movies in 6 months, and you guys can't even do something in a year. And then literally, so I was like, yeah, okay, fine. I wasn't really that interested anyway. I was more interested in doing the exciting stuff. And then literally I went to AstraZeneca, and I had almost this awful experience where my first experience in AstraZeneca was like, yeah, we got to maybe upgrade this telephone platform. I think it had been in since 1983 or something like that. So it was literally falling over. I was like, oh, it's going to take about a year. And then they're going to shout at me. And then I went into AstraZeneca and we said, yeah, it's going to take about a year. Like, a year? Wow. It normally takes us 25 years to do something. So it's so quick. And it's like, thank God, it's the same project. But,
That's funny.
it's a company culture.
It's company culture. It's hard to imagine, I suppose, like what that's like for them, because they've no idea like what a phone system is, right? So either you look at it as like, well, let's just take one thing away, put the other one in. How can it be so hard? And then the other one is like, it's a complete black box of mystery. I've no idea how you even start. So a year sounds fine. It's just yeah.
And let's be honest, a film company, a pharmaceutical, a fashion house, a manufacturer, they have no interest in a telephone system. Right? So why do we care about this? This isn't core to our business. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting and useful segue I'm going to jump on, because let's come to your blog post now, which starts off saying, like, well, for a start, it's a series of blog posts called No Excuses, CX Leadership Chronicles. And in the kind of first paragraph of the first blog post says that at CloudInteract, we believe there's no excuse for bad customer service. And so that's an interesting thing you said about they have no knowledge and they don't really care about their phone system, but they do care about customer experience, right? Or at least they should do. Do they is the first question, because yeah, I mean, Alex and I have the benefit of listening to you every day. And this is a thing that I know you say internally around this kind of no excuse for bad customer service. So yeah, do you think that is a problem for companies at the moment?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's patent. I think it would be patently absurd if someone came onto any podcast or any public forum and said, you know what, humans, we've cracked customer service. We do it really well. I mean, they just like,
Mm.
everyone would laugh, wouldn't they? They would laugh.
Yeah, it's
They
true.
would throw things at you. It's
Mm.
patently obvious that we don't do customer service well as,
Mm.
within our world,
Mm.
within the world. We don't.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
obvious. Phone up. No
Everyone's
one
got
wants to
everyone's got
phone
a
up.
story, don't they? Everybody
And
has a story. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's patently absurd. However, the second sort of counterbalance to that is every company, because you asked the question, didn't you, Tom? Everyone cares about customer service. I mean, it feels like they don't care about customer service, right? But they
Mm.
clearly do. If you went to the CEO of any company or C-suite or people in charge of marketing, or even people within the company themselves and said, hey, do you want to give your customers a really good service? They clearly do. They obviously do. They don't turn up at work and go, no, I'll tell you what,
Mm.
we want to give them a really bad experience and make them
It does seem like that sometimes. Though it kind of seems like actually bad customer service can almost be a strategy at times, kind of like
yeah, well,
to
I
dissuade
think,
people.
yeah, I think it might be in some areas, but I think there's no doubt about that. But, I think that's a perfectly valid kind of thing to say. But I think it's in such a small number of organizations. And that's kind of why myself and Nick, and then we got all you guys involved in that with CloudInteract, in that we know that the customers want to have a really efficient customer service. And we know there's lots of people within organizations that want to provide really good customer service, but there's a problem. There's an
Mm.
obvious problem somewhere. Now, part of that's technology and part of that is process. And we're kind of seeing both. We're obviously committed to the technology. We'll fix the technology problem. We know how to fix it. That we know it, proven it. We've done it over the last 18 months. Now, there might be a business process challenge as well, but
Mm.
we're actually sort of bringing that up as well. So I guess the point is it's fixable. It's not, there is no real excuse for poor customer service.
Mm.
And, I think some business people would say, it's because of the technology. I think they'd be fair. We're aiming to get rid of that objection.
And I think that that's exactly what I was going to say. Actually, like if you could find the chief, well, a lot of companies don't have a chief customer service person, right? But like whoever it is that's responsible for that customer experience, they would say we'd love to, but it's the technology. Like we can't because of the technology. Like, is that the core kind of excuse you're getting at? Is that actually the technology isn't the problem anymore, or needn't be the problem?
Yeah, I think it's that classic. So when I always find complex problems, no matter where, there's often not just a single issue that's creating that complex problem. It's often two things at the same time. And I firmly believe it's technology and business process that need to interact together. And I think you can have, I think it's rare to see really good technology and poor process, if I'm being honest. I think it's more likely that you might have poor process and poor technology. But there's definitely a demand for, in the customer support areas, like, we want to provide a really good service. So our job is absolutely to fix the technology element. Say, look, it's, and to just almost be really articulate. It's like, now this sounds terrible. I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't really care if it's us doing it or I don't care what partner's doing it or what vendor's doing it. It really just, it's just not acceptable anymore. It's just like, don't accept it, don't.
Mm.
And on the customer support side, it don't feel kind of, oh, it's just intractable. It's not intractable. We can fix it.
Mm. Historically, the customer experience has always been owned by IT, right? Because there's been a lot of tech needed, like a lot of
That's right.
servers and a lot of like material stuff. And obviously that's changed a lot with the cloud. Is that a sticking point at the moment? Is that the ownership is shifting out of IT to somewhere else and there's a bit of resistance there? Or is that not the case? It's just that customer service don't realize that it's theirs to own now.
Yeah. So I still don't think that the business own the budget for customer service. I still think it's IT. And I think what you're probably finding is, and we found this, 10, 15 years ago, where when Link and Skype for Business did come along, the exchange guys within the organization, they were very skeptical of it. And then the network guys said, was it a network thing or was it an exchange application? And I think we're in exactly the same point that we are now, sort of 10, 15 years ago, where the telecoms guys, they're saying, well, we've got a contact center to run and you expect us to run it at 99.999, and we're going to run it in this fairly traditional way. And then the cloud engineering team are going, well, that doesn't, it's could be on premise. It's not scalable. It's not, the consumption model is we don't want to pay licenses. We want to rather consume it. And then the cloud guys are going, can we do this? And then there's probably an internal tension going on within that IT. So one of the things that we try and do is actually bring those two teams together and say, look, there is a way forward. We can provide a really scalable, absolutely rock solid platform that meets the business demands for it being constantly available, etc., but also gives you all the latest capabilities as well. So that then you can go to your business and say, hey, look, we can provide these things.
And just to bring us up to a couple of years ago, that's why you created CloudInteract, right? To try and change that,
Yeah.
or at least give somewhere for these companies to go to, or change that. And how much of it is the industry changing anyway, and you're there kind of seeing it and reacting to it, or you, like, it sometimes feels like you're genuinely trying to almost change the industry and like get people to wake up. And I think, we inside CloudInteract, like there's this persona, mostly persona, not true, honestly. I was like, grumpy Simon stomping around, not blaming the industry, talking about the industry. It's like, why don't they change? Why don't they change? Are you frustrated by the industry and like how it's not changing fast enough?
I wouldn't say I'm frustrated. It's just, I'm being honest. I think it's a huge opportunity for not just us, but for people who want to change. And again, going back to the background. And I'm not sure, Tom, if you were involved in this when we did this. Certainly, Nick, the co-founder of CloudInteract, was involved. But we were in AstraZeneca, and people didn't believe that the sort of instant messaging would take off in the enterprise, or the voice of the video. But we knew it was going to happen. So we ran this pilot. It was always supposed to be 1,500 users. It turned into 28,000 users as a pilot. Because it was just so obvious. But there was still skepticism, and we're at exactly that point. So we just need to go and articulate it is possible. I say to people mostly, as a counsel and as a guide to people within enterprise who've probably been in contact center for a long time, like, you either do it or it'll be done to you eventually, because it will happen. My grumpiness isn't going to shift an industry at all. And it will happen, but we're the accelerator.
It's that, like, if you don't do it, somebody else will, and
Yeah.
then they'll overtake you.
Yeah. And companies will not be around. That's the scale of change that's going to happen in the next 3. I mean, it's already happening. But companies that are doing things in a traditional way, as in the vendors and potentially those around those vendors, it's just the business case is good, is generally good for the transition from a sort of technology business case. But once you start seeing the possibilities opened up to the business, then it becomes an absolute no-brainer that it's just going to change.
Must be quite satisfying to have this proven out, over the 18 months or whatever it is since you founded CloudInteract, having some really good, strong case studies coming out now around how that transformation that you mentioned has become true.
Yeah. So what's really exciting, and obviously, Alex, you've been a key part of that. We focused the business case initially on the first couple on the technology on itself. So we said, look, legacy technology, you can maybe save, 50% or whatever. And actually the business cases have actually been too conservative. They've saved, these companies are saving more because, and again, we kind of sit around, don't we? Sort of not quite scratching our heads, but we think, well, why did we undershoot the number, the saving, which is a great problem to have, right? It's if we overshot the saving, we never want to do that, but we undershoot the saving. And let's talk about telephony into these platforms. I just think the new global platforms are just more efficient, and calls aren't being dropped and things like that. So I think that reduces call volumes within the new platform. So that's great in itself. But what we're right on the edge of right now, and I think more exciting, is because we've done a couple of these large programs over the last 18 months, you can't do the technology transition and also the business transformation at the same time. I don't think. I think it's just too much, and I just don't think. I think you just can't almost build the case internally. It's just almost too complicated. There's almost too many stakeholders to get involved. But what we've noticed is we do the business case initially on the technology. We do get the business involved and say, hey, look, we're making this change, but we're pretty much going to do no harm. We'll do an as is kind of like service. And then let's see what the possibilities. And we're right at that stage now talking to the businesses. And that's what's really exciting. And to give you an idea of, the kind of the difference in transformation, maybe a technology saving, maybe I'm just going to make the numbers up just for the scale. Let's say the contact center was costing you $2 million a year, £2 million a year, and we've got it down to £1 million a year. Okay, that's great. That's £1 million. But the actual business that technology is supporting is probably a cost of 20 million. So 2 million technology costs, 20 million like on agents and costs and all that kind of stuff. Now, we've been working on things where we can hopefully automate that stuff, but automate it in a really good way. And if we can, say 10, 15, 20% of that 20 million, then we're double or tripling our savings as well for the customer, for the end user organization.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to think about that in a minute and talk about AI, because we always like to talk about AI on every podcast we do, because it's like the thing of the moment. But I just wanted to kind of mention as well, because I'll get told off if I don't. You're doing a webinar soon, and the only reason I'm bringing that up really is like you're quite open about talking about this stuff. Like there's the blog post, and I know there's more blog posts to come about talking about this stuff, and you're doing a webinar about it. So it comes back to that. Yes, you're being very open, I think, in talking about the industry and how it is changing. And as you say, some of those opportunities for whoever, like for us, but for other partners as well, it's a really big space. And I know I can say that you've got some guest speakers from AWS on that webinar as well. So that's going to be really interesting. How does AWS fit into all of this? Like, are they, how influential and, have they been in making this happen and in this process?
Oh yeah. So again, we didn't really talk about background in terms of technology, but I'm not from a AWS background. No, I haven't been. But the story of Amazon and how they went to market, I think, is probably the perfect anecdote of the change required within the industry. Amazon.com, biggest company in the world, they went to market. I don't know when it was, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And they wanted a customer experience platform to support Amazon.com. And classic Amazon, customer obsession, put the customer first. And they went to market. They couldn't find anything, and they built their own. And it's 7 or 8 years in the making. Maybe, and like any new technology, maybe in those first few years, it probably wasn't as mature as for maybe more conservative enterprise. But right now, it's absolutely rock solid. It's an amazing platform, and we would happily work, with other large platforms as well. But right now, Amazon are in AWS and Amazon Connect are in a really, really strong position. They've got a great product and a great platform. I also think the way that they do their consumption based approach, I think is really good. So you can almost get to that stage one of, okay, let's get rid of the legacy. Let's get you onto a modern cloud platform with lots of different capabilities. And then, of course, it doesn't stop there with Amazon or AWS. You then go on to we'll talk a little bit more in a while about Gen AI and AI capabilities and, all those types of things. I think, it's a really strong platform. And they're obviously in a lot of large enterprises. So we're trying to work really hand in hand with AWS and try and tell that story of there are real opportunities for the end user organizations to exploit these new capabilities.
It's refreshing how they continue to update those capabilities as well. It's sort of not rest on the laurels, but keep iterating on the platform, making it better all the time.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things is Alex's, end of month update on what's new with Amazon Connect. I look out for that one as well. So
Never short of something to talk about in that meeting, are we?
No,
No, that's
no,
true.
really good. So I really like that
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
and
it's
it just
definitely.
shows you the pace of change.
Yeah, and there's a lot. There's a lot to be said as well from that kind of building a product against an actual real need that they had versus anything else. Like it's quite a powerful thing. Like when you're talking through your customers as well, with that, we have this really, really specific, odd business process the way we work. So we need it to work like this. It's like, well, we can do that if you want to throw enough money at it, but actually, like, it might be your process because look, this works and it works at Amazon scale. So and that actually makes a lot of arguments go away quite quickly. And it
Yeah,
makes people rethink, actually, we've got this process, but we've had this process for 20 years because we've had the process for 20 years rather than it's the best process. But anyway, let's talk about AI because it's the thing. Equally, equally revolutionary, do you think? And how do you think it's going to impact like the next, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years?
yeah. So actually, if we talk about Grumpy Simon gets definitely rears its head with AI and the industry as a whole, because the way that people articulate it, and it's that classic hype cycle of, oh, it's going to fix everything. Oh, you just turn it on and it just works, or you pay a license. I think it's rubbish. I think that I think the way that our industry is articulating how to implement AI and what the benefits are of AI is actually doing the technology a disservice. So if I level set and say I think it is the most transformative technology since the advent of the internet, I absolutely believe that. I think it's going to significantly affect positively the way that and let's just talk about customer experience, because obviously that's what we're here to talk about. I actually think it's AI in customer experience is probably one of the very first areas that it can really make a significant difference. But I get very frustrated. I've always been frustrated with people that say, "Oh yeah, you just basically turn on a license or just flick a switch and the AI will sort it out." It
Mm.
doesn't happen like that. It will take work. It'll take work. It'll dedication, and it's not just a flick of a switch. It's a process that we need to go through. And that's kind of what we're talking about in the blog. We're kind of talking about, okay, you just can't go from a legacy platform and then, oh, we'll just buy an AI platform and it'll all work together. And again, this is probably just a human level thing. There's nothing more frustrating than someone saying, oh, now we've got this AI bot and we're going to put it on the website. And it's just not living up to the
Yeah,
expectations of,
yeah.
of,
And
of any.
it's back to poor customer experience again. Then, like
Exactly.
using the
Exactly.
technology as a crutch. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think what's possibly happening is I think again with the technology change, I think there's probably that bit of tension within the business where, oh, we've got a new technology, we can actually grab it from the business and then deploy it, and then we don't really have to talk to IT. Well, you'll just get yourselves into all sorts of trouble there, compliance wise, but it just won't work particularly well. And then the other way, you know, is IT responding quickly enough to building up enough intellectual muscle within their organization to build AI
Mm.
capable systems? Probably not. You know,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like it's somewhere in the between, isn't it? It's like you can't completely ignore IT because like they do this stuff. They know how to roll out big products compliantly and safely, and they've done it before. But at the same time, like they can't completely ignore this either because it's
yeah.
coming and it's that competitive advantage thing.
And we see it as well, don't we? I guess when we speak to customers, we get an impression pretty quickly of where they are in their sort of journey to the cloud or what their thoughts are. And you can almost see the maturity of the organization, and it makes it will absolutely make an impact on the success of AI. And again, I think it's probably so transformative. If you don't do it right, then you're probably going to get beat in your marketplace, because someone will do it right and they'll save a whole bunch of costs, and they'll increase the quality. So a couple of examples with AI and customer experience at the moment that we're witnessing and part of. The first thing about an AI, bot, and again, you've got to assume that the quality is right. Obviously, the significant difference is a human is only available for probably 8 hours,
Mm.
unless you take significant costs and have two humans available for 16 hours or three humans available for 24 hours in different time zones and whatever. well, this bot's available 24 hours. It's always there. It's available on weekends. It's there. That's a big tick in the box for AI. Obviously, it has to be accurate. That's the second really important thing. And we've got a couple of processes that we're developing internally that I think will help with that accuracy. And the first thing is it's got to be based on the company data within that it exists within. I think if you're training models outside of the customer data from the company data, I think you're going to get yourself into trouble, both with the bot not being as smart or as accurate, and also compliance issues.
You wouldn't bring someone in off the street, put them in your contact center without any training, right?
Yeah. Or say, well, they've trained over there, and it'll bring their answers across. So yeah, exactly right. It's exactly right to think of it in that way. So you get the right answer. And again, I think with the way you deploy AI, you don't expect that 24-hour agent to be 100% accurate all the time, because they don't have to be 100% accurate. Because humans aren't 100% accurate. So if you make 1,000 calls into a contact center, if 90% of them are completely accurate, then that means that 10% are still not accurate. So if we can just get to a level of, in the first stage of, we're definitely as good as the human interaction. And once you train it, you see, that's the sort of multiplier effect. Once you train it, it then becomes better than the human. So then, and more available. And, and I think we also have to be realistic. It's cheaper, right? There isn't that human cost as well.
Well, it saves the humans for those more interesting, more intricate, detailed things that you're never going to completely be able to automate. But it takes away the drudgery of the repetitive work.
Both the human and the bot, you need some kind of feedback loop there to make sure that you're picking up on those failures, and you can train them to get better.
Absolutely. And again, one of those great sort of highlight points of a poorly implemented AI bot in customer experience. There isn't a simple way to say, I just need to speak to a human. Look, I'm sorry, you just can't answer what I need. I just need to speak to a human. And for me, there's too many of those bots out there at the moment that, again, I think the companies have implemented, they're panicked, and they said, oh, we just got to get something out there. Don't just get it out there. Just think about it and do it in a considered way. And that is one of those things. I need to speak to a human. And as you say, Tom, I think that's where, I did politics, and I actually did economic history as well. And, everyone's always concerned about, the human impact of technology. But I'm a kind of big optimist in that the more time that we're able to automate, the more cost and money can go onto, as you say, more pressing things. And that's the other thing. There will always be a need for a human to be on the end of a telephone, whether that's for a particular customer who just wants to use the telephone, or it's so urgent and so complex that sometimes the AI will never be better than the best humans.
Yeah. And there's always somebody with the first instance of a problem. Like there's that problem that happens first, at least once for every problem, So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which the AI just, again, maybe it'll get to be able to do that one day, but probably not.
No.
The classic example for me is just going back to a holiday experience. 18 months ago, we went into a travel agent's, and we had a particular place where we wanted to go, and we had a particular set of requirements. I think we wanted to go to Orlando, but we didn't really have that much other parameters. But we spoke to this lady at the desk. It was in one of those, travel agents. She was absolutely brilliant. She knew exactly what we wanted and was like, bing, 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 do this, do that, do that. And, within half an hour, we, spent thousands of pounds with this travel agent, because she was just brilliant. And as we were walking out, obviously this was, maybe 18 months ago, I was saying, they need to, bottle that up and put that in an AI agent. And I think you can, but sometimes maybe you can't as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's really interesting. We could talk all day. We should probably stop. Simon, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been really, really interesting. And thank you, Alex, as well.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you won't miss the next episode. Whilst you're there, we'd love it if you would rate and review us. And as a new podcast, if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how CloudInteract can help you on your contact center journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.